All right. Welcome back to Zero to 100 Million, the podcast where we document what it really looks like to go from $0 to $100 million in assets under management in 5 years or less. I'm Alex, and I'm building a real estate company from the ground up, documenting every step, every win, and every lesson along the way. In this week's episode, I talk with my parents, who are also my business partners, about what we each worked on this week. We'll cover how we're using a CRM to stay organized, the process of scrubbing and sorting the facility owner list that we purchased, and how we're beginning to warm up conversations with potential equity partners. The most exciting part for me is that at the end of the conversation, we finally land on a business name. All right, so here's our full conversation, a behind the scenes look at how we're laying the groundwork for our real estate empire. Okay, welcome to the show, parents.
Thanks.
The most natural human way to.
It's good to be back.
Oh man!
Thanks for inviting us here into our home.
Yeah, awesome. So we've all been working on different things this week, and I'm excited to hear how it's all coming along. So what we'll do is we'll start with a quick check-in and get the conversation rolling from there. So let's just go ahead and jump in. What has everyone been working on this week?
Do you want to start?
Well, let's see. We got our CRM set up, at least the one that we think that we're going to use. We did an onboarding session with the company, so we're going to probably have that completely up and running this week. We've got a list that we've been scrubbing and sorting through.
So I have been doing a little research on a couple of properties that we are supposed to be looking at, and also just talking to everybody I see about what we're doing. And it's very interesting that people are very intrigued and interested in what we are doing, and they want me to keep them updated.
Yeah. So let's dive a little deeper on the CRM stuff. So can you share a little bit, what is a CRM?
Well, it stands for Contact Resource Management, and it really has to do with if you've got a lead, managing the leads. If we've sent somebody a postcard and they call in, it'll capture their phone number. It'll automatically input their name, their phone number, and it'll record their phone call. Gives us the ability to respond to them and keep track of what kind of communication that we've had for them. Gives us the ability to send out direct mail to them, to text them, to email them. And when we have a lot of leads that we're dealing with, we would lose track of them so fast if we had to remember them, or even trying to input it into just an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. It would be just so cumbersome to keep track of people. So it's just a way of automating our leads and keeping track and being able to have an ongoing communication with them. And we can use that not only for people that need to sell a storage facility, but we can also use it for vendors or for any number of things that we have to keep track of people. This is a system that we've used before for residential, and it works really well for that. What we would normally do is buy a list, upload it to the system, do direct mail from the system, and then it drives traffic to either a phone number, a lead capture phone number, or it'll drive traffic to a web page where they can fill out a form. And it's a way to get somebody just to raise their hand and say, yes, I am interested in selling and starting a conversation. It also has some automated responses and pipelines that you can set up where, for instance, if we wanted to do a drip campaign, sending out a direct mail piece to them every month, we know that somebody's not going to respond to the first time they get a piece of mail from us. They're going to usually respond sometime around the 5th or the 8th, somewhere between the 5th and the 8th time. So if we had a letter going out every month, it'll keep track of the letters that are going out. And then once somebody calls in, it'll automatically stop that campaign so that we're not continuing to send them or call them or that puts them in a different category. So does that make sense?
Yeah. So when we were on that onboarding call just yesterday, one of the things that she talked about was skip tracing. I had purchased a list for us, and I'm still waiting to hear back with the actual list. The guy sent, incorrect information. Well, not incorrect, but he didn't send me the right kind of list. So I
Right.
had asked for,
Most of what was in that list were the addresses of the facilities and not the
right,
owners.
exactly.
Although
So
some of them were the owners.
yes, some of them were. It's interesting. I think you mentioned this, Mom, that, these guys send the same list out to everybody, right? Like they have access to this information, and probably a lot of people are getting like not the right kind of information. So when I noticed that it was primarily facilities, I reached back out and I was like, "Hey, I'm honestly a little bit frustrated that this is what we got because when we were talking, you told me that you would get me the owner's information." And he responded, "Oh, you wanted the owner's information?" I was like, "I thought that was clear. Yes, that is exactly
And
what I
that
want.
was in
Why
an
would I want the
email
facility?" Yes,
that
I
was in
had it.
an email you sent him, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And so fortunately I was able to copy over and in quotes, like, "This is what you said to me. This is not what you delivered." So he was very accommodating and got back to me right away. Although I am still waiting on the updated list.
Yeah. Well,
So so one of the things that I'm hopeful for, well, one, I'm hoping that he actually gets us the list that we need. Because we've been going through and seeing like which one of these facilities do we think, or which of these facilities do we think is going to fit our buy box and work for us. But with Resimply having skip tracing, it may be able to help us confirm that this is actually the owner's contact info.
correct.
Can you tell me what skip tracing is?
Well, skip tracing, that term comes from private detectives would use a skip tracing service to track down somebody who had skipped town owing money. And so essentially it's like pulling whatever data is available online to track somebody down. You can type in a name and a city that they have lived in, and it'll pull up what are probably their locations that they've lived, where they live now, phone numbers that are associated with them, maybe some emails that are associated with them. And most of the skip tracing services are a little dicey in terms of, it's usually just scraping information offline. There are actually one of the big credit bureaus, I think it's TransUnion, runs like the premier skip tracing service, which they've got the real data. You're going to pay extra to get that. But if you need to track down somebody to collect some big bucks from them, that's the one that you would want to go with. The service that's provided through something like Resimply, that's part of the service that we're paying for, but it's included. So it's really just scraping that information from online. It's using something like
Spokio.
Spokio or whitepages.com or something like that.
Which I also have a White Pages subscription, because before we got this list, man, it's really time consuming to try to go through and manually find people's contact information. It's not a good use of time.
I'm not sure that the skip tracing service in Resimply is actually going to find us the names of the owners with the address
No.
of the facility. I don't know that that's going to pull that.
Well, the nice thing is that the list that we have, it does appear that the owner's information is correct. So
Owner's
with
name.
skip tracing,
Yeah.
can we just use their name? And honestly, especially out here in the Midwest, which is what I've been looking through so far. I've looked through Iowa and I'm halfway through South Dakota, kind of combing through this list. It's a lot of individually owned properties where people just use their personal cell phone as the business line. And so I wonder, having their cell phone and their name, if we'll then be able to get their address more easily.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about that. The phone numbers because I've been combing through that list also. Most of the phone numbers that I'm seeing on there are also the numbers that I'm seeing that are on their signage. So
Yes.
I'm thinking that actually is the facility phone number for most of the ones that I'm seeing.
Yeah, but a lot of the facilities are run by the owners. A lot of them don't have offices. And
So
when I, at least in the initial stages, when I was looking, using white pages to look up information, sometimes all I would have is their phone number, and then that would get me the owner's name, and then that would get me their address.
right, and that's something that we used to use. I used to use white pages, probably a dozen years ago when I was looking for owners. And we can do the same thing with storage facilities. It is a good tool, but you said earlier it's not a good use of our time. I did a little bit of that yesterday. I was just like curious about the project that we're working on for the class that we're taking, and found out the name that they bought the property in. And looking for information online, you would think it would be easy, but it isn't. It's a lot more difficult, and some counties or cities are less accommodating to research. So it is important for us to locate the actual owner, their actual physical address. But I don't want to spend the time. As you said, it's not the best use of our time. So
Yeah.
we do need to get a good list.
Yeah. Although going through that list, it is worth looking up the facility and getting the street view just to get a sense of this is really a blighted property that we don't want anything to do with, or this is some kind of Class A gigantic facility that probably is not going to be what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Just really determining, actually going through each individual record, it is useful just to do that.
Yeah, and that's what you and I have been doing, is going through those lists just to get our eyes on the property. I mean, the things that I'm taking note of as we go through that list, I'm looking at, is there a website? Because a lot of them, even if they don't have an actual website, they have Facebook pages. A lot of them don't have anything. And then if they don't, even if they don't have a website, a lot of times there'll be Google reviews. And so when there are bad reviews, I'm like, oh, this is awesome, because it means that,
Yeah,
maybe they're
I
not,
came across
maybe
some of those yesterday.
managed well, right? And so I'm taking note of that, and then physically looking at the property from an aerial view and then a street view, just to see, you know, does it look like there's more space to expand? Does it look like there's a sign? Is there a cell tower on the property? Actually, I haven't seen any with cell towers, but I saw a TikTok this week about how if you can get a cell tower on your property, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yes.
something I came across on two of those records. There were some relatively small facilities. I think one had like 8 buildings, but it was right next to a car wash, like a self-serve car wash. So there are things that are attached to it. Some of them have that do like truck rental, like U-Haul rental. They'll have a store that's associated with it that does
Yep.
sells all the packaging equipment and that sort of thing.
Yep. And that's one of those auxiliary income streams for storage facilities that we can explore if we want to do that moving forward. I've heard mixed reviews about if people like to do that. Some people, if they're self-managing, it can be it can be a great option. Or if it's a larger facility with an actual manager, having a U-Haul, basically you work with the company and they bring a truck to you, and then you manage the truck, make sure that it's cleaned and that there's gas in it. It can be really great, but it depends on how you're running your facility, because if it's not a manned space, then it's extra work that you're doing for not a great return on investment all the time. Last week I hand wrote 50 letters with the help of two friends, and it took us almost 4 hours. That is not a good use of time, right? And so we'd been looking at some companies like Ballpoint Marketing, and I think recently you said has, a way to send out letters to your list. Yeah, it's interesting because you can do things on your own. It would save us a little bit of money to handwrite letters in terms of how much actual money we're spending, right? So a stamp is 72 cents, a letter is 20 cents. So we're at 90 cents. And then some of these companies, it's like $1.20 to $2, depending on the kind of letter that you're using. So you could be saving $1, whatever, but the amount of time that's wasted doing a menial task that you could be using your time to do anything else that's maybe more productive. I think it's challenging because it does take money to do this, right?
Yes.
And so navigating what things are valuable for us to actually spend real dollars on, and what things are valuable for us to spend our own like personal currency on, right? Like our time currency. I think as we go about this business, my hope is that we will get to the place where we have employees and we have a system that works for us so that we are spending our time the most efficiently that we can. But
Right.
in this early stage, in these early stages, knowing what's important and what's not, I think is just a learning curve.
Right. And the thing about business is that there's always a cash flow question. Sometimes the cash flow is just excellent and you could do whatever you want. And other times it really you're down to, oh my gosh, I got to move all this money around and we have to like go into the austerity budget. So in business that's not uncommon. And I think determining where we are in terms of our budget should be made without regard to what we have right now. So I think that we need to have a plan for, okay, how many dollars are we going to spend on marketing every month? What is our budget and what is our time? What kind of time do we want to spend? But I think that that's something that we will probably need to do in the next couple of weeks is set a budget. Because if we don't, the funds that we do have will just kind of just
Float away.
they'll float away. Well, yeah, they'll just drain out. And we do need to get moving forward on this. The other part of that is, raising capital. I know we may talk about that a little bit in a little while, but
Yeah,
it does
that,
take money to do a business.
Yeah, on that with the budget for marketing, one of the things that we've always, I mean, we taught our students this, people taught us this when we were learning the business, is that like doing the direct mail, the marketing budget is not an expense, it's actually an investment, because if nobody's making the phone ring, I mean, your business is going nowhere.
Yep.
So, but we do have to be wise with the marketing budget. We have to be wise with how those letters go out, what kind of letters go out first. For instance, I do think that the first thing that we're going to need to do is finish scrubbing that list. You and I have been going through that, and you've got those categorized as yes, no, and maybe. The ones that we determine are no, we need to take right off of that list, so we're not even looking at them anymore.
Yep.
But the yeses and the maybes. You and I, we probably need to look at the street view on the ones that are maybes, and determine whether or not those need to stay on the list or if those are a no also. But I think one of the things that that we were always taught was that if we're going to do direct mail, the first thing that should go out would be the cheapest letter, because some of those are going to come back, and we need to know if that letter didn't get to the person that it was supposed to go to, do we either need to take them off the list because they're dead, they moved, they sold the business, or something like that? Do we need to do a little bit more research on that particular property to actually track down the owner, or or is this just a dead lead that we need to have off?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I listened to a podcast earlier this week that talked about like the number one way to get good leads, and it's cold calling, which, as you guys know, is like my literal nightmare.
I kind of could see the sweat arising from your skin when you said cold calling, and the breath got really shallow.
It's phone calls are something that for me I've always struggled making, and it's even though I feel it's gotten a lot easier as I've gotten older, there's still something in the back of my brain that goes, oh I don't want to do that. And I think it's really your fault. It's your
Because we let you get away with that.
No, because when I was like 12, you made me do a cold call.
I do not remember that.
I do. I remember that well.
I don't.
You
must.
Because we're starting.
I never asked you to do it.
You had one person yell at you and you freaked out. It's like, I'm never doing this again.
I cried. I was a child. I was scarred for life.
But you were our child. You were much more mature. We treated you like an adult at 12.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, so I think I've already enlisted the help of a friend. It is something that I'm going to do, and I know you guys have talked about doing some of that as well, but I think that realistically making those phone calls is going to be a primary way that we find good leads. We had somebody say to us kind of offhand that storage facility owners are just really nice. Like they're different than homeowners because they're business owners too. So they want to talk to you and they want to ask you questions,
Yeah.
and you can build relationship that way. And we've heard from our mentors already a few times, like, they'll start a relationship with somebody, and then sometimes they won't hear back for years, and then when the time comes, that relationship from 3 years ago or whatever comes back ready to sell when the time is right for them. So I think that once we do get this list figured out and we start cold calling, I think we're going to find ourselves with a lot of opportunities and potential leads, for like actual leads for us to pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just like, not writing those letters. I mean, writing those letters is not the best use of your time. It'll probably eventually become to a thing where making cold calls isn't going to be the best use of your time either. That if you've got somebody that can actually make those calls and is good at it,
Yep.
we're better off with somebody that we've assigned that task and is really good at it. And then if they develop a lead, they hand that off to you and you take it from there.
Yep. That's the hope. I don't
Yeah.
want to make those first calls.
Well, and honestly, the best leads are the ones that are from the incoming calls. It's always better when they call you than you call them, because the dynamics is so much different. It's instead of you're going to somebody hat in hand going, oh, will you please sell me your storage facility, or will you please sell me your house? I need to buy your house. Somebody can blow you off easily. Just get away from me. I don't need you. As opposed to they've got something and they're like, yeah, I need to sell this place.
Yeah.
Get the phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's like a little bit of a generational disconnect with regard to sales. Like we've been listening to these books that are 100 years old and all about like the the way that you dress, or like shaking somebody's hand in a specific way. And while there's some good information there, it's a little bit antiquated. Like I personally, if somebody comes to my door to sell something, I don't answer. I have a Ring doorbell and I am not going to the door. I do not want to talk to you, right? Like the direct sale thing does not work for me personally. But again, a lot of storage facility owners are older. They come from a different generation where they appreciate the personal touch of being contacted by a human, right? And so I'm hopeful that we'll encounter that more frequently than encountering people in my generation who are like, why are you talking to me? Go away. I'm not even going to answer the phone, actually. So,
Well, something that I've noticed, I do think so. My outlook, the way that I approach everything is, I think everybody wants to talk to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm quite the opposite. I don't want to talk to anybody.
yeah, no, and so I am. One of my gifts is actually encouragement. That I really can't help but encourage people. When I'm out, I just find myself wanting to give somebody some kind of positive affirmation, and I think that component of my personality makes it very easy for me to break through that. So that's one of the reasons why I think that my aspect in this business is probably not going to be the marketing in terms of like doing the perfunctory things, but in terms of contact with people, I feel like that would be my area. And also, I think we're going to talk about this at some point, raising capital.
Well, that's a good segue into we are gonna talk about raising capital, and so we aren't at a place yet where we have a facility that we're asking for investors to partner with us on yet. But I know that you have been doing some kind of preliminary conversations with people that who might be good partners or investors that would have some capital that they could invest in potential or future properties. So yeah, tell me what you've been doing, how you've been initiating those conversations, and what those conversations have been.
So one of the things that I've been doing this week, I went down to Virginia Beach to a trade group meeting, all real estate investors, and I saw a lot of old friends there. It's usually about 150 people that go to those meetings, 150 to 200. And I happened to run into somebody I saw the previous week at a landlord luncheon down in the Hampton Roads area, and started to talk to her about what we're doing. And she said, "Oh, I'm very interested in that. Here's my phone number. Let me know what you're doing." Because I just said we're looking to branch off into buying self-storage facilities. I also connected with a bunch of people who I've known for years, and I don't miss an opportunity to say what we're doing. And it is fascinating that people, it's the same response from everybody.
Yeah.
I hear that's a really lucrative business. Everybody says
I
that.
know. And even people that aren't investors,
No.
anybody who's even thought about real estate that I've talked to is like, oh, yeah, I've thought about doing that.
Yes. So it's really interesting to me. So anyway, there are a bunch of people that I've connected with or reconnected with in real estate, and now people who've been very successful who may not want to be involved in doing rehabs anymore. Actually, there's one lady in the trade group that I heard her voice behind me, and she's probably 80.
Oh, you scratched.
I know, that's right. She's, how old would you say she is?
Oh, Ginny?
Yeah.
Oh, she's got to be pushing 90.
86 or 87.
She's way.
And, I've known her for about 20 years. Yeah,
Stop
we got a
scratching.
dog scratching. Anyway, she was behind me, and so I didn't get a chance to turn around and say hello. And then she went and sat down at the next table. And so I figured I'll just say hi to her later, but she was asked to stand up and talk about, because she's one of the oldest members, she's been in the group for 30 something years. And she stood up to talk about something, and she got mid-sentence, and she saw me, and she was like, and she just stopped. It's interesting because a lot of the best deals and the best opportunities will come from people who you have a connection with. So that's kind of the thing that I think I bring to the table is that I stay connected to people, and I make a point to make people feel like they're important and they matter to me, and I remember them even if I don't remember their name, because sometimes I haven't seen people for 4 years, and I'll say, I am so sorry. I don't pretend to know people's names. I know most people do that, but I don't. I say I want to know. I'm sorry, I just don't remember. But I did talk to several people there that are interested, and then when I came home after that little trip, I went to yoga again, and I ran into somebody, and she called me later, and she said, I'm very interested. I've always wanted to do self-storage, and I told her that we'll be raising capital, and she said, well, please let me know when you find something. And then yesterday or the day before, a guy that we're in a project with right now came by, and he's very interested in investing, and he has a HELOC.
Yeah,
and he has
about
250.
Wow.
So one of the things that I'm going to do, hopefully in the next month, is really learn about how to structure the capital raise in a way that makes sense for us, but also makes sense for investors.
Yeah.
So I need to really go through about a half a dozen examples of different ways that capital is raised. And so one of the things that I've realized over the years is that people who get to a place where they have capital don't want it sitting idly by.
Yep.
And they're looking for us. So that's kind of my approach is I have to help people find us. And it all goes back to that experience I had with, at the time it was Bank of Hampton Roads, little podunk bank in Hampton Roads. And now it's a much larger bank, by the way. But I remember somebody saying to me, it was somebody at the church, I think, how I was saying, I don't know how to get money. I mean, I don't know how to get a loan. And he goes, well, where do you bank? And he said, just go to your bank. And we had just done a successful deal. And I went in, I had to go to 3 different branches before I hit the right person. And I told him who I was and what we've done and what, that we bank there. And he just going like this, you're just the kind of people we want to do business with,
Yeah.
And I was like, from then on, it was, it changed my paradigm. Instead of going like, would you please lend me money?
Right.
It's like, do you want to invest in money? Do you want me to help you make some money?
Yep.
I want to help you
Yeah,
make
and
money.
I know you and I have a plan. You guys are going to be coming to visit for Easter. I was going to go and talk with the bank this week, but I think you're right. You mentioned that we should do it together.
Yeah.
And so we'll do that, in a few weeks when you come,
Yeah.
just to see, because my bank is is a relatively small local bank. I mean, they have multiple branches in Iowa, but it's by no means a national bank.
Right.
You know what Louisa is doing is something that we always taught to our students in residential, and that was, just have like a 3 sentence elevator speech
Yes.
ready whenever you run into somebody, just to let them know what it is that you're doing, and kind of toss it out to them. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what we expect to have happen. Would you like to hear more? And just opening up the door to find out if they are interested, and a lot of times people are, and sometimes they're just not.
Yep.
But we always taught our students, to let everybody know what you're doing, and even work their leads. Do you know anybody else? Do you know of anybody that might be interested in this?
Yeah. Have you found like that there are questions that people ask, or are you still in these early conversations not really getting to that place of potential investors asking questions about like has there been any common theme or reoccurring yeah
Well, not yet.
conversation around
So
facilities?
no one's asking for details. I think that's where you're going with that. People are interested, generally speaking. Now, I do have a few people that walk up on Bell's Lane with us occasionally, and very very heavily into finance, understand the financial markets. I I think that in order to really get him on board, I'm going to have more details. But he's interested. He did say he was interested.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. And then we are a part of a group called City Elders, and a few of the people in there that are business owners are very interested. We've had a couple of people in particular that might be able to give anywhere from to invest 50, 100.
What kinds of questions do you anticipate people will ask when we get to that phase?
What are the return? What are the what's the minimum
Actually,
buy-in?
years ago, we had a woman came to us that we sat down with, and we were discussing residential. But her question, when she was interested in investing, was, "Will I get my money back?"
My
Not
principal. No,
not
my
what's my
principal.
return going to be, is am I going to get it back? But that was at a time that
Stock
the
market.
market had really done very poorly. There was a lot of financial turmoil in the world. It was after the last crash. I think it was around
Yeah.
2010 or so,
Yeah,
2011.
she literally said principal. Will I
Yeah,
get my principal? So she didn't even care if she got
a
her a
return.
return. She
You just
just cared
didn't want to lose money.
because
Yeah.
there was no safe place, well, other than a bank,
And
I
that's
guess.
actually an interesting concept, because in general, people are more afraid of losing than they are,
Of not making.
yeah, well, yeah, that people will avoid loss a lot more vigorously than they will pursue gain.
So I think people will be asking the terms.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think of what is the word for that. I think I was talking to you about it. When you have different categories, it's a preferred investor. So somebody who maybe gives $100,000, the terms might be a little different from somebody who gives $5,000.
Yeah, and
Right.
most banks won't even make a loan to somebody, like on a property, unless it's a minimum of $50,000.
Yeah, which that was what we had been talking about last week was, thinking that would be our kind of minimum buy-in. But we listened to a podcast where
Yeah.
um, the capital raise included people that were giving small amounts, $5,000 amounts. And I actually really like the idea of allowing people to invest at whatever level they're capable of because, we think we're hopeful that this is going to be successful. And so I have friends who might not be able to give, who definitely can't give $50,000, but if I can help them make double double their money, if it's $1,000 or $5,000, like I would love to bring as many people along with us as possible on this like journey of wealth building, right? And
Yes.
so if we can figure out how to structure our capital raise so that we can invite people of all abilities to partner. I don't know. I really like the idea of that because
Yeah.
then we get to bring everybody up with us, right? Like what's the saying? It's
A rising
yeah, a rising tide
Rising
raises.
tide lifts all
ships.
ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you and I have been reading the E-Myth, and something that really popped out of me. I really like that book. it's kind of told business systems with stories. And so it was kind of easy to follow. But there was a chapter in there, and I actually made a mental note. It was chapter 14 that talks about basically assigning people a role of accountability. So, who is going to be in charge of making sure that all of the accounts receivable are received? And who's going to be in charge of making sure accounts payable? Now, anybody can do the job, but who ultimately, where does the buck stop? And I think that that's something that we need to do in our company, is to really assign who is going to be the person that's going to be accountable to see that it's done. Not that they necessarily have to do it, but that person is accountable to see that the job is done. So that's one thing we have to do, is define the roles,
Yeah.
and then assign the roles.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's something we probably should take care of soon.
Yeah, I mean, that there was it was the story that he told about the two brothers who wrote
That's the
every
one.
position that they filled and then sign a contract and to do that position until they found someone else to replace it. Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is overkill, but maybe it's not. I think
Well,
defining roles is really helpful,
well,
but
can I tell you
yeah.
why it isn't overkill? Because we've got years of experience in
Hmm.
business. People forget what they said, and they forget what they agreed to.
Yeah.
But if you write it down and everybody signs it, then you can refer back to it so that there's not a misunderstanding later on. It really helps to keep relationships healthy. So
Yeah.
writing things down and signing them may seem like overkill, but it is, even 6 months from now, are we going to remember? Like, you'll probably remember everything, but maybe not. Maybe, people do, or they don't. When you don't write it down, maybe your understanding is different of the terms. So
Yeah.
your understanding of the terms is different. So it really just is a good practice to have it defined and have it written so that you
Yeah.
can remember whose job it is. And then when you assign that task, or when you turn that over, you know, if you're going to give that to someone else, now they will sign that same document, and you'll be on a
Right.
beach in Cancun somewhere.
Yeah. Well, maybe this could be, how somehow we spend our time next week on our
Yeah.
next episode is talking about what roles there are, and creating a list, and then putting our names next to each of those to help us define some of that, moving forward. I,
Yes.
in my mind, to be completely transparent, I envision myself in every role right now because
Yeah.
I want to learn it all. Right. So I don't have to be where the buck stops, but you know, f- I envision myself in every role except for cold calling.
Yes. Okay. Well, and I think,
Uh,
referring back to the E-Myth Revisited, in that chapter, those two brothers were doing everything.
yeah,
And so it's not that whatever role you have, that's your lane, but
hmm,
it's rather that's your responsibility, and we can all be doing everything. I think it's not a bad idea for all of us to be cold calling in the beginning.
yeah, yeah. I know. I need to.
We need to write
I
a
need to.
script.
I
You
have
do.
I had ChatGPT write me a script a week ago. I got a script.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were some good nuggets in that book though. I think it was like the first or second chapter, there was one quote that stood out to me, and it was I have it written down. The technician suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure takes the work he loves to do and turns it into a job.
Yes.
And I think, it's what stands out to me is that that's so often is the way that we go about doing things, where you love to do something. And honestly, I see this as a real problem in my generation. We were told find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? Like that
Yes.
idea of if you follow your passions, you'll be happy every day you go to work. But the problem is that when your hobby becomes your job, you, one, no longer have any hobbies, and you
Yes.
stop getting the same level of enjoyment from the hobby anymore.
Right.
It starts to feel like work, even when it's not actively for work. So, if you're a songwriter or you make music, then every time you make music for your job, it's your job. And if you try to make music outside of your job, it still feels like your job. And I think the thing that I'm excited about with real estate and storage facilities for me is like, this is not my passion. You know, like I don't
Oh,
care about this at all. What I care about is creating systems that work, that are productive. I care about building wealth. I care about yeah, just taking this to the next level. Building the business is the thing that I'm passionate about, you know. And so what that does is for me, it frees me up to think about it in a different way, right? Like it's not that I love real estate or storage facilities. It's I love the process of building a business and creating wealth,
right.
you
It's
know.
almost an advantage to not know how to do something
Yeah.
because you have to get someone else. Like even in the rental market, in the rental business with houses, I don't know how to fix a toilet. I mean, I
Right.
probably could do it, but I'm never going to do it. So I'm
Yep.
going to find I have a system whenever anything goes wrong. I actually do have a system to get somebody out to fix things, usually within 24 hours. But it's
Yeah.
not me and it's not
Right.
him.
Yeah.
I know how to
Yeah,
fix
so
it.
No, you're
there was
not.
another quote that from that book that said systems permit ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results predictably,
Yes.
right? So setting up those systems help you do things with excellence every time. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be you that does the thing, right? It can be knowing that the plumber is going to be called, knowing which plumber is going to be called and who's going to call the plumber.
Right.
And again, doesn't have to be you. It can be your property manager.
Well, one of the things that I I was thinking about this week, I think that we need to be branded, and we have been texting about that, picking a name that will be kind of the umbrella company, and then every facility
Mm-hmm.
will be bought in a name,
Yep.
but our overarching company will be something that perhaps maybe at some point we will sell to a REIT
Mm-hmm.
for $50 million, or
Yeah.
$100 million. I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on how many we have in there.
Yeah. I mean, so I know we were brainstorming a little bit today about,
Mhm.
possible names. I did go ahead. I think I got really lucky. So,
Yes.
I bought two domain names. And one is a little bit weird because I'm not quite sure how it works. So I bought one. Let me actually see which was the one that was weird.
BestStorageFacility.com
Yeah.
and SelfStorageAroundMe.com.
Yeah, so one of them is weird. Let me pull it up. So beststoragefacility.com I got easily. The other one, the selfstoragearoundme.com, it was a little bit confusing. I purchased it, or I'm pretty sure I purchased it, but it came across as it was an expired auction domain. And so and then I paid for the name, and then I also paid for the .com renewal. So I think it's going to take a couple of weeks to come back into like circulation. That one's not in my account yet, but that one to me felt like a domain goes to auction if after 30 days of expiration nobody renews it. And that one to me, self storage around me feels like a very obvious that
Yeah.
Well,
like
you'd get a lot of organic traffic if, somebody was Googling that.
yeah.
That'll go to your website. And,
Yeah.
even if you have a different business name,
Yep.
that's a good domain to have because, if they're typing that in, that's the first thing that's going to pop up right
Yep.
below the paid ads.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that one because if that actually comes through like I think it's supposed to, I mean, we should hold on to that. But yeah, I mean, so as far as company names go, we do need to decide on one because if we're gonna fill out the 10 DLC reg
Yes.
for texting from the numbers that we purchased, we need a
Yeah.
company name and an EIN with that name.
We need to do that on Monday.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? I mean, I have a list of other domains that I've Googled that are available. I mean, I don't know. What do you think we should do? Do you have any should it be best storage facility? Like should it
Oh,
be
self-storage around me.
No,
self
the other
storage
one.
around me? That's the
Oh,
other one that I'm
the other. Oh, best. Wait, you
Those are the
had
two
two
that I bought.
different.
I bought Self Storage Around Me. That's the one that I'm waiting on showing up in my account, and beststoragefacility.com.
Yeah, the I like the best. I like both of those names. The
Mm-hmm.
only question I have is if this is going to be an umbrella company, and what if we end up buying mobile home parks? And
Right. Yeah.
so in that sense, I'm not sure that it'd be the best.
But maybe this is the connect. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think we need to build a tree, right? Like of what
Yes.
we want this to look like the master company with the holding company, and then the storage side, and then maybe we have another LLC that's for something else. But what's that one branch up above the
Yeah,
different?
you know what though? I think initially you just need to come up with a name for a company that you're going to create an LLC for, just so that you can start your marketing. I mean, you can always do another company and make it a subsidiary if you
Yeah.
want to have a different company that's a holding company. But again, you probably are going to want to come up with a business name for the storage that's got something related to storage in the name.
Oh, well, we can use the name.
Well, when you say that, are you talking about the name that will go on facilities that we buy? Is that what you're
Well,
referencing?
I'm just talking about you need to come up with a name so that we can get the marketing going and drive traffic to the CRM.
Right.
No, that's not going to be the name of the storage facility.
What you're talking about is a name so that we can just start when if we're texting somebody, it's like, "Hey, this is Alex from Best Storage Facility." You know,
Yeah,
that's what you mean?
Yeah, that's
I do like that,
Yeah.
but
It could
best.
be Best Storage, right? And then the address is beststoragefacility.com.
But this is.
But Best Storage could be the name of the company with Best Storage Facility as the domain, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but the question is best storage available as a business name in Virginia? If
Yeah.
we're going to incorporate in Virginia,
Right.
well,
Do you
that would
wanna-
have to go to
that I need
Smith.
to look up on the SCC.
SCC, Virginia?
Dot Virginia.
Business entity search. Let's see. Entity name. Best storage. No records found with your search criteria. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah. Best storage.
Best Storage LLC.
Yeah. Let's do it. That's exciting.
You did that today.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because we're the best.
the best storage.
Because we can have the name and the EIN number on Monday, and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I think this is great. Best Storage LLC. I think Best Storage is nice. I think it has a
I
nice
like
ring
it.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see. If we do a quick just best
we're going to need to get articles of incorporation and
Best storage.
operating agreement.
Yeah.
Which-
There's no, so when you do a Google search, it does not come up with storage facilities. It doesn't come up with a company. So that's encouraging.
Yeah,
That's great. That means that we've got a lot of room to really get our like SEO optimization
yes.
figured out.
yeah. Does the mentoring group that you're in have like templates for operating agreements and that sort of thing for this?
I think so. We'll have to check on the iPortal, iLearn portal. I mean, so
When for what?
Templates for operating agreements. Because you're good. You would do an articles
just ask
of incorporation,
ChatGPT.
actually articles of to create the LLC. But you're also supposed to have articles of organization plus
incorporation and your operating agreement.
yeah, operating agreement.
That would be basically, who are your officers, like who has what position. So I think you would probably be the president,
El presidente.
el presidente
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
company. Yeah, yeah.
You'll be the queen mother,
I can be I am the queen mother.
the dowager queen.
My lady, to you.
Yes, milady.
Yes, my lady.
Yeah. Awesome. So we have a name.
Yes, we have a name. So we're Best Storage LLC, and then Best Storage Facility.
.com is our
.com.
website. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we go with that one.
Say hello to our millions of viewers. Awesome. Well, this has been a really good conversation and productive because now we have a company name. And I guess the last thing before we go is what's the plan for this coming week? What are we going to be doing?
Well, we got to set up the LLC, get an EIN, and we got to finish setting up the CRM,
Yep.
so that we can get the 10 DLC stuff going. Finish scrubbing that list, and maybe get the first set of letters, postcards, something going out to
Yeah.
the Iowa list.
I
Yeah.
think in conjunction with doing the operating agreement, we probably could figure out kind of the structure of who's going to do what in the business. That might be something. I don't want to overwhelm ourselves with too many tasks, but it might fit really well into establishing the company. So we'll also have to set up a bank account for that.
Yeah. Awesome. So it'll be a good full week. This is all of these things that we're doing are important, but they're also like all the little steps that you have to do, right? Like we're just doing these small things that are important. We're building the foundation so that we can then launch, build our empire. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for doing this again. I think this was
Yeah.
great.
This was fun.